Just again to introduce, I just wanted to share who we are a little bit. So you're going to start seeing our faces a lot this week. So Lisa, or me, and Andy are going to be talking a little bit about the EP resources, and then right after this, Andy's going to be talking about the team guide. So this is a little bit about ourselves. I was formerly an engineer, then went to teaching, and just really excited to be with the REC Foundation for the last 3 years. And my current role is the Director of Regional Operations, and I'm based out of Washington. Andy, you want to say hi?
Howdy, everybody. Similar background, engineering, that found the light and went into teaching and coaching, and here I am with the REC Foundation, loving every day of it.
Perfect. Thank you. So today, I just want to share again, if this is your first time with GoToWebinar, there is a chat window on the right-hand side, and we strongly encourage you to utilize that function to ask questions throughout the session. If you have a question after this, feel free to reach out to your RSM directly, or on the agenda, the flipbook agenda, there are links to ask questions on the Q&A link. So there's lots of opportunities there to ask those questions that you have and to provide that feedback. That's really critical for us. What we're going to be talking about in this first session is going over these brand new resources that we're very excited about. The EP certification and the EP guide for VexIQ, VRC, and VexU types of events. And then also I'm going to show you how to find some resources on our website for those that maybe have not looked at it very often or are trying to navigate the new system there. At the end, there will be some time for questions and feedback, but don't hesitate to ask questions during the session as well. So the first thing is the REC Foundation Event Partner Certification. And so this one, I mentioned yesterday, it was a project that was done by several of the REC Foundation staff, and I do want to give them a shout out for that. We had Mike Martis, Shelley Brasher, Bill Rhino, Dan Troy, Leslie Cruz, Terry Marwood, and also Ben Mitchell and Luann helped kind of review that. So it was a huge effort with a lot of different people. So if you have any of those in your region, make sure to give them a thank you for that. But the idea behind the Event Partner Certification was to provide an online resource for training new event partners, and possibly in the future, creating different ones for existing EPs. This is not to say that the certification is only for brand new EPs. We're definitely encouraging all EPs to look through the certification. There actually might be areas in there that you maybe never learned about or before, or might benefit you. And then this first year is what we're calling a pilot year. It's kind of what we did with the head referee certification, is that, this first year we're putting it out there, and so that we want feedback from the community. So it's definitely going to be encouraged for EPs to complete. It will be free and located on the RoboMatter website, the VEX website, for their certifications, and just alongside the head referee certification and the upcoming judge advisor certification. So all those certifications are going to be in one place for you. It is anticipated it's going to be available fall of this year. We are actually just finishing up the content last week, which is really exciting. And RoboMatter is an amazing partner that is helping us sort of take all that content and put it into a website interactive format for you guys to use. So very exciting. Like I said, this year is going to be the pilot year. Please send us feedback about it. It is not going to be a requirement for event partners. And I don't want to emphasize that enough. It is just an optional resource for learning how to host an event. And we did combine, it's all, we didn't separate it out into VexIQ, VRC, and VexU, because we actually, that was the original plan. We had 3 separate ones, but as we were going through this, we're like, wow, so much of this stuff is just, it translates over all the different types of programs, and there were some nuances that were different, and so we color coded those. So if you're doing VexIQ, there are sections that are blue versus VRC, which are red. So it kind of helps you as an event partner sort of pick out the sections that are most relevant to you. But overall, a lot of the event planning process is very similar for all of the different programs, which is great because if you're a VexIQ event partner and then all of a sudden you want to do VRC events, like I said, a lot of those skills are transferable, which is amazing. We are considering in future seasons some way to maybe do like a smaller update certification for just new things that season or advanced topics. So this is where, like in the chat window right now, if there are specific topics that you would love to have more information on, please feel free to put that into the chat window there. But like I said, we're always looking at ways to improve and create more resources for you guys so that your lives are easier and that this event planning process is easier for you guys as well. So I'm going to go over what's in this certification. Again, we really tried to focus on, as a new EP, what are those like basic things you need to know, and we did not want to overwhelm that new EP. We know that could be a danger. So these are the main learning goals. So after completing the certification, you should be able to do a lot of these steps. And what's nice about that certification, you can always go back. So if there's like a unit, like there's a pretty extensive unit on how to post an event, a robot event. So if you forgot exactly like what all those fields mean or what are the recommended settings, at any time you can go back to that unit and see what those instructions are. So then, and also it kind of goes over what is an EP, what's an event like. So it kind of sort of steps through that process in terms of delineating all those areas of the event and what you need to sort of consider in the event planning process. We also share a lot of resources, like links to the event date checklists and different things that will help you plan for the season. And then we were kind of debating on how much to tell you about Tournament Manager. We know that most EPs are not running Tournament Manager the day of the event, which is great because you should delegate that to somebody else. But there are some basic things you do need to know in Tournament Manager, like printing out pit signs or how to just set up the event to like see what your agenda is going to be. So there is a unit on Tournament Manager and how to run it at a basic level. It's always a good idea to have a couple of people at the event anyways that know how to run that software program. So there is a great unit on that. And that also might be a great unit you have if you have a Tournament Manager operator, they could just go in and do that unit by itself as well. It does also go into VexU teams. There is a separate unit on that. It's pretty short, but it does share a little bit more about how to integrate VexU teams at VRC events. And so, if you are a VRC EP, then that kind of helps you see that opportunity as well. We also integrate a lot of best practices and tips that we've learned throughout the years, throughout the certification as helpful hints to help you guys sort of not reinvent the wheel and sort of learn from other people's experiences of what are the best ways to sort of implement these strategies. Okay, so the next resource that's coming out this season is REC Foundation Event Partner Guide. And so where this sort of came from is the judge guide, how a couple of years ago, a lot of those judging resources were consolidated to help sort of find that information in one place. We also realized for the EP resources, so on the left-hand side here, we're under consolidated. These are all the different individual documents that were on our website that you had to sort of search through different areas to find. And so we decided we're going to try to make it easier for EPs to find this information by consolidating it into one guide as well. The table of contents is an interactive table of contents, so that's a really great index to find what information you're looking for. And so that's going to be sort of a simplification, we're hoping, of all the different things on our website. So as an EP, you don't have to search under a lot of different menus to find the resource you need. One thing that we'd really like feedback on this year after it's released is to make sure it's usable. You know, by putting everything together, it does create a longer document. And so we want to make sure that this is still a usable resource for you. So if there's different ways you'd like that information combined, we did actually leave some of the documents separate. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see direct links. These are resources that are either they're shared among many different guides, like code of conduct reference and many different things, or like we've kind of figured you really need to print this out separately, so you're going to want a quick access to that. So like the pre-event checklist and the event day checklist, those we actually kept out, but included in the EP guide is direct links. So when you're in the EP guide, you could just click on it, and that'll be a separate document that you can print out quickly. So that's kind of the sort of overall goal of what we were trying to do with that EP guide. But again, we do want your feedback when you try to use it this year. And especially if you're a new EP and you're using it, to share any sort of, did we miss something or any topics that you want to go into more detail, that would be extremely helpful, and just share that with your RSM, or you can email me directly there. Has anyone ever made a Gantt chart outlining the roles and timing of an event? That's a great question. I'll make a note of that. I'm not sure necessarily a Gantt chart, but I know in the EP guide, we do have a section on event day activities in terms of what goes on in an event. And we also specify like some sample agendas, so you can kind of see how those activities, we actually gave a couple of different options because we know the events are run differently. So that we gave it, what different event days look like, but I like that idea, so I'll make a note of that. So again, like I was trying to say is that the EP guide, it's getting to its final stages, which is very exciting, and it will be available this August, and I'll show you here in a second where you can find that. So I'm just going to go over our website. So the REC Foundation kind of maintains two main websites. RobotEvents.com is one you might be familiar with. That's the one where you post your events and you manage your teams. But a really great website, if you haven't explored it, is RoboticsEducation.org. So on this website, we consolidate a ton of resources for teams and for event partners and volunteers. So right now, you can see on the screen, there's a screenshot of what our base home or the website looks like. There's a couple of features here. So first, there is a search bar up here. So if you're looking for a particular document, you can just start there and start typing in the name, and it should pop up. We are still working on making that search feature better, but it's a really great tool just to find something really quickly. The next thing for event partners, if you hover your mouse over the event partner title, this will pop up, and there are a bunch of different menus here that you can select, from becoming an event partner, downloads, FAQs, updates, and the Event Partner Summit actually will have information from this summit and past summits. One of the most frequently accessed menu is the Event Partner Downloads. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when you click on the downloads, there are sort of three main pills, we call them. So VexIQ, VRC, and VexU. And underneath that, you'll see a bunch of, once you click on one, the color changes actually. So when you click on VexIQ, these will all be blue. When you click on the middle one, it'll be red. And then this one is, it'll be black. And so that kind of shows you you're looking at the resources for the right program. So under here, once you click on VexIQ Challenge, you can expand each of these menus and it will show you those individual resources. This is probably going to be updated in the next couple of weeks because, like I said, we combined a lot of those resources that were individually separate into the EP guide. For example, league play, all of that got put into the EP guide. So, which is nice, it's going to simplify this menu so you won't have to navigate through so many different areas to find what you need. Actually, I'm going to go back one. Forgot to mention, so once the EP guide and the EP certification is released, we will have it under this area somewhere under download event partner resources. So you can always come back here, and we'll also send it out in the EP email blast so you guys are aware and can take a look at those. So the next thing I'm going to show you, this is one of the most frequently asked questions I get from EPs is, where do I find volunteer resources? So as an EP, you spend a lot of time recruiting some great volunteers, and then you have to kind of share the training resources with them. We do provide all the training online resources for the volunteers, even though we do recommend that they shadow somebody at other events. That's really helpful. But to find their training resources, and you're going to go to our website and hover over volunteers. Once you hover over volunteers, you'll see this pop up, and then you're going to click on volunteer downloads. Oops, I think the other slide got missed, so I'm just going to go back. It's going to look a lot like this. I apologize. I think a slide got left out there. So it's going to have, again, the 3 pill buttons. And then instead of day of the event and game resources, it's going to show all of the different volunteer roles. So like, for example, referee, cure, field reset, everything that you can imagine. You're just going to expand the menu by clicking the plus button. And then when you do that, all of the resources for that volunteer will show up. So for example, the head referee, they'll have the referee guide, the head referee videos, and like the link to get certified. So the best piece of advice is to, once you assign your volunteers, you can navigate them to this volunteers download page, and then just say, click on your particular role, expand that, and look at all of those volunteer training resources in there. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for all of those. You can also find things like for the inspector, the inspection sheets for VexIQ and VRC. Just a new thing this year in Tournament Manager. Those inspection sheets and score sheets are actually in Tournament Manager this year. So for those that forgot to download those the night before, they're actually going to be under reports. So it's a really good feature that we're adding to Tournament Manager this year. There's also another way you can get the training resources for volunteers. We have a new system that's open to EPs called our Volunteer Management System. And in that system, it does have the different roles for the event, and a really great way to sort of message out what roles you need. And then people can sign up for those in the volunteer management system, and directly in there, once they sign up for a role, those training resources are available to them. So definitely look into our volunteer management system this year to see if it's a great match for you guys. Okay. Question over here, great. Will the new volunteer management system be linked through the EP resources, robot events, or both? So, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong in this. So we just have learned about this ourselves, which is super exciting. I believe Tanya said there is a link. I don't know if Andy, if you guys have that, and put it in the chat. But I think it's volunteer.
Let us get that for you.
Thanks. I don't want to say the wrong link. But yeah, so there is a separate website that goes directly to our volunteer management system, and Tanya Weber is heads that up, and she has an online training system for EPs to learn how to use the volunteer management system. That's currently not like in the EP guide. We reference it, or in the EP certification, but we reference it in the EP guide. And that's a really, and so Tanya is going to be the best person, and your RSM can help match you up with that resource there. Okay. Great question. Can everyone access these resources? Do you have to be an EP to see these resources? So just like all of our other resources, these are all going to be available online on our website. Anyone can access them and download them. For the EP certification, there will be an age requirement because to be an EP, you do need to be 18 years or older. So to start that certification, it will check your age on that one. But the EP guide on our website will be available to anyone. Would it be possible to have a Google Slides or PowerPoint version of the event meeting announcement? This would be a helpful tool for running an event meeting. That's a great idea. I think we've talked about that in the past, so I appreciate you bringing that up, of maybe embedding something directly in Tournament Manager to kind of go over the typical event meeting notes and kind of, all the different nuances so that you're not necessarily reading from a script on a piece of paper. So thank you for that suggestion. Just curious for those that, so Corey, Ben, and Luann, are there any questions that I missed that you saw in the chat window there? I'm not hearing anything, so I think we're good there. Perfect. The other thing I just want to kind of share about is sort of if you are a brand new EP, I think this year is going to be a more challenging year than normal. So I just ask that you really work with your local RSM to sort of figure out the best way to host an event this year, and know that hopefully in future years that it will be a bit easier or different. I guess maybe not necessarily easier or different. So it's really important as a new EP to constantly work with your RSM. That's what we're here for, to help. In the past, I got a lot of phone calls, and it feels like they're being apologetic, but no, it's like our passion is to help event partners get going, because you guys are doing an amazing job. So we really appreciate it. We do have about 7 minutes left in this session. So again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat here. Andy, do you mind unmuting yourself and sharing what that question? I don't understand if I'm sharing more about that question.
Yeah, sorry, Lisa. The question was, it kind of goes hand in hand with the earlier question of the Gantt chart of the day of, but is there going to be a typical calendar of what to do 1 month out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out to have success from the best practices of other event partners?
Oh, yes, perfect, thank you. So yes, so it's kind of hand in hand with that. If you haven't checked out the pre-event checklist and the event day checklist, that's exactly what it does. And for those of you who like checklists, I'm one of those people. I've been told by many EPs that if you use those checklists, then you're golden, because it really does cover every single detail and it spaces it out. So for those brand new EPs or experienced EPs, it's really a way so you don't have to remember everything. You don't have to think about, did I forget something? It literally has everything you need to know on these checklists. And those are under the EP downloads, under day of the event and event planning. And there also going to be direct links in the EP guide for you. Yes, very, very highly recommend. Of all the resources, honestly, those checklists are my favorite. And we're also looking into maybe even combining it into one checklist. So instead of having to find 2 different checklists, merge them together so you have it all in one. Awesome. Andy, do you have any other tips or strategies for EPs that you want to share? I know, putting you on the spot there.
Do we want to give away all the great things they'll find in the EP guide? I don't know. Tune in and read for more. But yeah, as far as being an event partner, it's and you've heard this in other sections that have been tuning in yesterday, it's all about the volunteers and keeping a strong volunteer base. They make or break any event. So like what Lisa said earlier about the volunteer management system, this year's going to be different. So my only thing is, Lisa, would there be anything in the EP guide about this year in particular? Or is it going to be season neutral and we'll complement that with some COVID appendix or some sort of item like that?
Right now it's season neutral because I think that's a great question. I think a lot of those details are going to be released in the season restart guide that's going to be provided by Steve Rummel. Thank you for reminding me of that. I've looked at that and it does have a lot of great tips for this season, including, for example, refund policy. That's a huge one this year. So there's some sample wordage that EPs can use for refunds. So I highly recommend, once the season restart guide gets released here in a little bit, is to utilize that sort of those different references in that document to help, communicate to teams kind of the expectations this year. I also know because there are going to be some virtual options, to make sure that on your general information page that you clearly communicate what your event's going to be like. If it's, even if it's going to be a normal event, normal, I don't know what that, means necessarily this year, but the typical event, just communicating that to teams, because I don't think people really know what to expect this year. So I think the RSMs will encourage you strongly to be very communicative in your event descriptions, so that teams can know what to expect before they arrive. Okay, question, awesome. Are EP certifications mandatory for the 2020-21 season? No, they're definitely not mandatory. Highly encourage for all EPs to complete the certification, but it's definitely not mandatory. Is there anything in the guide about recruiting volunteers? Yes, we do have a volunteer section in the EP certification and the EP guide. And it goes over some general recommendations of where to find volunteers, and also like how to maybe find them in your community and outside of the normal sort of VEX community, but maybe at colleges or different community organizations that have people that are willing to volunteer. Super, that's a good one. Yeah, I think recruiting volunteers is one of the hardest tasks for an event partner, because it seems like a daunting task for some of these roles, especially like head referee. I know we are having a special session on just head referees. So that's a great one for you guys to check out. So that will give you some tips on how to find a referee and get them, make sure they're confident. Ideally that anybody could be a head referee, going through our training materials and, being great with students. But I also know that a lot of people are intimidated by that role. So that's a hard one. Super. Well, I don't see any other questions. So we're about at 8:30 here, so we can.
I'll throw one.
Okay.
You're up for it. So if I'm an event partner and it is July 15th, halfway through the summer, what would you do right now to prepare for the season?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wow.
I think like on everybody's mind is always, what can we actually do, right? So I guess we're really hoping that given these options this week, I think the first thing is, kind of thinking, is there something I can do in the fall versus what it may look like, after January. I guess my recommendation, if I were EP, is try to find something that is workable in my organization and that's good for my region. I really think those virtual skills events, or these, the scheduled skills events where only teams come in at certain times, is going to be a great resource for teams. So if I was an EP, I'd try to figure out how to get one of those going in the fall for those areas that can have kids around. So yeah.
If I may, I would also suggest tuning into the next session to hear how they can be an advocate for the robotics community.
Perfect. Great segue.
I try. I'm afraid I'm not going to have as many attendees as you. I mean, it's the EE guy. It's going to be the grail of event partnering in the future. I'm excited to be able to roll it out.
That'll be fun. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the session. And again, please contact your RSM if you have any suggestions about resources. We're always trying to improve those. Thank you.